Name and professional affiliation.
Ann DeMoro, California Nurses Association National Nurses Organizing Committee. I'm also Vice President of the AFL-CIO, National Vice President.
Now, if the AFL believed what it says, that it favors
Yes.
single payer, why would, I mean, they would be acting differently than they're acting
The
now.
AFL basically acts like the Senate. Their members all support single payer. They all say they support single payer, the Democratic Senate, but they go along with what the legislators here want. I mean, ultimately, Obama drives this ship. And I think we're going to have to take a look at Obama now. I don't see a solution. I mean, basically, you know, Baucus, we can protest Baucus, but he's one of many. Ultimately, the driver of this is Obama.
So you're pretty convinced that the majority of members of the AFL support single payer?
Absolutely. It's just like the difference between the Republicans, I just said this to the Washington Post,
Right.
actually, and the Democrats is that, and I consider all the folks in the AFL Democrats, is that the Republicans actually have the courage of their convictions and the Democrats don't. So they all support single payer, but they don't act on it. And in fact, they act against it by virtue of the fact that they won't even demand a policy debate on it. It is really, there is a conspiracy of silence here. There's no question about it. This isn't by accident, the single payer. Everyone supports it, but it's not on the agenda.
Right.
They think that they can ignore it. And what actually, this is a great moment in history because basically what we have to do is, you know, I mean, direct action. People have to take power at the local level, take patience to these legislators' offices, take the press to the legislature, back home, turn the pressure up back home. And the same thing should, look at hundreds, I mean, 500, virtually everyone in the labor movement supports single payer. I mean, we've got across the board support from the Central Labor Councils, from the international unions, from the AFL-CIO. Yet they make it politically viable for this body, Congress, to ignore single payer.
You just buried the hatchet with Andy Stern and the SEIU.
Yes.
A big point of contention was single payer. Was there any agreement on what you would or wouldn't say on single payer?
Yes, they'll support our fight for the state option on single payer. They will acknowledge the fact that single payer is the best system. But actually, I mean, you know, in terms of day-to-day work, they don't work with us on single payer. And in fact, we found the organization to be an obstacle on the fight for single payer.
So what's going to be the breakthrough? I mean, here you have the majority of Americans, the majority of labor supporting it, the Democrats effectively blocking it. What's the path that you see to breaking through?
I think it's literally direct action back home. I think Bernie Sanders, Senator Sanders, will help us. I think that he's going to be a catalyst in terms of having the words spoken in these halls. But it's back home. It's always back home. It's where these folks live. They come here and they have the comfort. They hide in the comfort of each other's lack of political viability arguments, and they don't act. And they don't have anything to react to either. So what we're now, I think there's a change here. I think all of the mobilization by the activists across the country, the registered nurses and the doctors are joining with the activists and real people, everyday people who are telling their story. I think that, you know, ultimately this is a social movement that has to happen. It's a shame that you have to have a social movement around something that's a fundamental right.
I asked Dr. Marcia Angel, former editor of the New England Journal of Medicine, whether single payer was going to happen. She says it's not because the political power arrayed against it is too powerful, too great.
The insurance companies.
And so is that your take?
No, actually I'm very optimistic. I think that what we see here in this moment is just such a crisis that we can actually, you know, that we can break through. I do think this is a moment that we can break through. And I think that, you know, I think they were taken by surprise in these halls. They thought, you know, all of the policy wonks out there speak for us, and I think what we've said to the FFL-CIO policy wonks, to the policy wonks in these buildings, we don't care about what your policy wonks, you know, the MBAs who have great benefits have to say. We want you to hear the voice of people who are actually suffering out there. I mean, these registered nurses every single day see women who weren't treated early die. And they're leaving behind children, they're leaving behind families, they're leaving behind real people. And nurses having to look in the eyes of the families. The registered nurse works with the family through the whole caring process, through the whole medical process. And so she gets a relationship with the family of the patient. When that patient is in there unnecessarily, which shouldn't have ever been there to begin with, but because of a lack of coverage, or when they're not going to make it, that nurse no matter who she is, suffers. And that suffering has turned, basically through the organization, we've turned that suffering into anger. Like get angry at these people, and this is tacit for the nurses. They tacitly know the difference between right and wrong, and they know not having comprehensive health care is wrong. And they don't want to make choices among people because nurses and doctors don't want to play God. They don't want to say, well, you get to live and you get to die because you have insurance and you don't have insurance, or your insurance isn't this level or that level. And it just goes on and on. They just want to be able to care for people, and that's why they've become some of the most vocal and best activists in this country on the issue.
One last thing. So President Obama said in 2003 when he was a state senator that he supports single payer.
Yes.
That it will happen when we get the White House, the House, and the Senate.
Yes.
Which has happened. They've gotten the White House,
Yes.
the House, and the Senate, but he's still opposed. So I might be too glib of a thing to say that this town is controlled by money. Do you believe it's a straight money issue, or is something else going on? Why he changed?
I don't know if he. I think the difference between Obama and a lot of these folks is that he actually deeply knows the difference. He's experienced the difference. A lot of these people here in this building come from the upper middle class. They've always had medical care. I think Obama's had a different history, and I think he's felt the difference. And for him not to act on this, for him not to take leadership, I mean, this is just a lack of leadership. The Republicans are going to fight a public option as hard as they fight single payer. So you have to question, like, what is, the heat isn't on Obama enough. The truth of the matter is Obama should have led. We should have been following Obama on this issue instead of trying to push him. And so we're horribly disappointed in the fact that he hasn't done this. And we're going to have to turn up all of his grassroots organizing he's done. Everywhere he goes, those are single-payer activists. There is no resonance. There is no political action for keeping the insurance industry at the apex of power with an underfunded public option. I mean, that's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. So, shame on him.
It's a good place to end it. Thank you.